Bitfarms CEO is going to step down soon. Bitcoin smashes through $70,000 once again, and the miners are slightly down today after an enormous up day yesterday. In fact, CleanSpark opened up pretty much exactly 3.5% down this morning. They're up from there now, but that's where they opened this morning, which is exactly where I said it would be yesterday after that massive run up. I'd expected to see a slight pullback as a result, which is exactly what happened. And I was very happy to see that this morning and feel like I was correct. There are also three more non-Bitcoin related plays I'm going to bring to you at the end of this video, because eventually the Bitcoin mining trade will end. Unfortunately, someday it will come to an end and we will need to transition to other things. Could these be some of those things that we transition to? Let's take a look at those at the end of the video. But first, let's talk about Bitfarms CEO Geoff Morphy, that he is departing Bitfarms. Now, there is some speculation behind this because we don't know exactly why he's stepping down, especially since we are going into the bull run, which means we are going into the hottest time for this company in terms of the most profitability, the most things happening. This is when the iron is hot for these Bitcoin miners, so it does seem like a bad time for the CEO to decide to step down. So that it's in itself, this news is bearish. Now, of course, this is not financial advice nor a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any asset whatsoever. This news is technically a bearish piece of news. Now, there is some speculation as to why he is doing this. It has not been announced why yet, but he will remain with the company until they find a suitable replacement for him, and that person has taken the helm of Bitfarms. So some of the speculation, some people are saying it could be for personal reasons, it could be for health-related reasons. I feel like if it was those reasons, though, since they are so benign and understandable towards the stock price, that they would have told us. They didn't tell us that. The other speculation is that Bitfarms wants to move its headquarters out of Canada and into the United States to take advantage of some accounting rules in the United States that would make them look more profitable, like their competitors in the Bitcoin mining space. And the speculation is that Geoff Morphy doesn't want to make that move to the United States from Canada and would like to stay behind, and is thinking perhaps he would take his wealth and do something else with it from that point forward. Now that is possible. That is possible. It's not like doesn't make the most sense to me personally, because most Canadians live within an hour of the U.S. border, and there's a lot of places they could set up shop in the United States that'd be very close to Canada. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me necessarily. As an American that has lived in Canada before, it's not a huge difference in lifestyle and experience, so that wouldn't that doesn't necessarily ring true to me. But people are different. They all have their own different opinions and stuff, so it doesn't really matter. He is leaving. They will be replacing him. This isn't necessarily a good look at the time. Now, the question is that a buying opportunity potentially? And we'll talk about that a little bit going forward with Bitfarms. So let's take a look at the miners real quick right now. So right now, CleanSpark is we are down 1% on the day. We opened up about 3-4% down at 22.35. We're holding at 23. If we can stay above this like $22 level for a couple of days, that's super bullish on CleanSpark, and I'll be feeling very good about this shelf turning into something of a double bottom. You can kind of see it forming here. It started on February 27th when we got up to $23, came down to 15, went back up to 21.50, came back down to 15, and now we're back up around that $23. If we could use that as a launch pad to continue on up, that would be great. Right now, we're actually almost break even on the day on CleanSpark, so that's actually not so bad. Let's take a look at the weekly chart, see how that's looking. Let me hide all my drawings so we see some stuff here. Okay, we are getting a bit away from the 5-day. The 15 has solidly come up and above the 200 week. We do have a bit of a cup forming here at that $23 level if we can get some movement on that. We also have a bit of a inverse head and shoulders showing up right here. We got a shoulder here, February 28th. We got the head down here, which is the long, wide, broad head, like a bull shark or something, looking down there all the way through all this time period, and this tiny little ugly shoulder over here in March 2024. If that plays out, that'd be interesting. I mean, I do think that based on this formation, we might be at the top of that particular formation. If we do keep going though, we got resistance up, around $30 off of that if that ends up being the formation. I do see a bit of a cup forming at the top of it though, so we might see a little bit more weakness coming back into this handle down here around, the 18. We might test 15 one last time, or maybe 18. We really need to stay above 18 to really feel bullish. We might come back, test that 18, maybe 15 if we're unlucky, and then launch from there. We'll have a look for that, and we'll be watching for that type of movement in Clean Spark. So that's Clean Spark. Let's take a look at RIOT. RIOT closed the day yesterday in this pocket of empty volume. We are retreating back to the level of support down at the $12 level. We really need to detach ourselves from that $12 level to get bullish and get up to that $15 level on RIOT. And that's really all we're focusing on right now. Stay above 12, detach ourselves from 12. Let's take a look at Bitfarms. I actually need to get onto the NASDAQ version. All right, there we go. NASDAQ version of Bitfarms. We are actually, we're down 2% today on Bitfarms. Almost 2%. We're down 1.3% now. We were down 1.75% a second ago. It is moving fast. We are getting below this volume here on the daily. We're getting very close. Anything below 224 and we could come down to $2 pretty easily on this. So this is a bit of a precarious little spot that we're in right now on Bitfarms that we are watching very closely. And this news about the CEO, that is not doing us any favors on this chart today with Bitfarms. So I'm watching it closely. In terms of this news being a potential buy the dip scenario, honestly, in my opinion, and of course this is not financial advice or a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any assets whatsoever, but in my opinion, with their roadmap, with their how they've been executing and the way that they've been trading the last few pumps on this stock, I view that as a buy the dip situation. I do think that that could potentially give us some good lows. This might be the type of news that drops us down to $2 for a few days, maybe, if it gets bad enough. It also depends on who they replace him with or if there is a scandal behind the reason for his stepping down. If there is a scandal hidden behind this decision, then we will probably see a bit of a flash crash in Bitfarms just because that is a psychology trade and that is how the market tends to play that sort of scenario out. So let's hope that's not the case, because that could be something a little more damaging for slightly longer. But I do think as long as the management team below the CEO proves to be effective, that we will see Bitfarms rise again and continue to go up. So I do, even in that scenario, once the dust settles, I would see it as a buy the dip scenario, even if that were the case. Of course, I'm not saying that's the case. That's pure speculation. We don't know what is going on or why. It's simply, for me personally, they didn't say it was something health or family related, and it is we're right on the cusp of the bull run, so I am a little bit suspicious about this decision, and I sincerely hope that it is not due to some sort of scandal that has yet to see the media yet, and that would cause us, a couple weeks of pain and some lagging during one of the most important times for a Bitcoin miner to have that ability to grow. Let's have a look at Bit Digital. Bit Digital is down 0.83% today. Yesterday it was down a little bit as well. We are kind of just hanging out here. We've got a bit of a downward channel forming. Let's get rid of this one. This one's done. Yeah, we got a bit of a downward channel forming. Let's get rid of the volume profile. It's a little bit difficult to look at right now. So once we get out of this channel here, once we break out of this thing, which is pretty thin and small, once we break out of that to the upside, I'm saying $3 is in our future on Bitfarms based on the technicals. We got that like big move down. We came to the bottom of the RSI. We got a 50 retracement which if we go back into bear territory under 50 on the RSI here in the next couple of days, we might revisit these lows again and do a double bottom like we did back here in January, where we had a bottom at 236, came up to $3, went back down to 228 before launching from there up to that 350 range. We might see a double bottom form again if RSI retreats back under that 50 level, but if we get above 250 here, $3 is in the cards, absolutely on Bit Digital. Okay, so that's it. That's what's going on with those. Let's take a look at Bitcoin real quick. Bitcoin is staying within the $70,000 range. We're doing very, very well here. We're slowly grinding back up to that all-time high where I expect us to find some resistance, perhaps a retreat back to 69, 68,000 range, which would make this a beautiful, beautiful cup. And then from there, launching up to $80,000. That is my expectation on Bitcoin. We are bullish on the RSI. This formation is bullish. Even if we come up to the all-time high and pull back to 68,000, heck, we could pull all the way back down to like 66,000, and that is still a very bullish formation on Bitcoin. So that's all good right there. There's also a new, oh yeah, there's another video. I'm gonna have to make this a whole other video that I'll do tomorrow or the next day. There are more companies working on the infinite money glitch that MicroStrategy has uncovered and been utilizing. Other companies are getting wise to it and might start doing something similar, which is an extra catalyst on Bitcoin, causing it to go even higher, but we'll talk about that in another video. We do not have time to cover that in this one specifically, but Bitcoin is looking good. The miners are looking good. Everything is kind of looking up except some of this bad news coming out of Bitfarms, some of this FUD. We'll see how that gets played out here going forward. Now, let's talk about the other three plays I've got going here that I am looking at right now. These are non-Bitcoin related plays. One of them is the Russell 2000. If you are familiar with the Wyckoff patterns that appear in charts, and you look at the Russell 2000, it looks kind of very similar to a Wyckoff bottom. Now this is what that looks like. It comes down, does this lots of back and forth here in a range before it eventually breaks structure, comes above, tests the top of that structure, and then launches from there. I am watching the Russell 2000 for just this exact sort of thing. So honestly, we've already got a bit of the retest back, right? This was a line I had before. So this, we're looking for something about right here. This white line would be the top of that range. So we've been in this tiny range here. Let me get rid of the volume profile. We've been in this tight range from, it's not that tight, but it's from 163 to $200. We've been in this range since April 2022. We had this bear flag off of the high. So we had a high of 244, came down, had a bear flag at the $200 level, dropped us all the way down to 262. We came up to 200, got rejected, back down to the same level. Up to 200, got rejected, back down to the same level. Up to 200, back down, rejected, even lower that time. That was a fake out, breakdown right there in that situation. Now we came up, broke above, kind of hanging out around the top here. Now I do want to see something like maybe a pop up to 210, 212, and then come back down one more time to test 199 to 200, and then launch from there up to 230, 240, maybe even higher. But even if we come from right where we currently are, as long as the price gets above, honestly, 210, boop, right there. This is on. I'm going to make this green. Price gets above 210 here and holds above this 210 for a day or two, we are looking at 230 very easily. Now let me look at the volume profile because I know that there's some right here. Yeah, 220. 221 actually is where we will hit some resistance and then slowly grind up to that 230 level from there on the Russell 2000. Now, SPY's been suffering a little bit because big tech has been selling off. Insiders have been selling dramatically on those, more so than they have in quite a while. So that's something to keep in mind as well. This here could potentially come back to 199 from 206. Maybe we are in this big pocket of volume if we go a little bit higher. But if we get above this little center point right here, we're probably coming up to 220. So I'm looking for 210 as the pivot point, or 200 for a launch pad on Russell 2000. Now, this won't happen in a day or a week. This could take a month, 2, 3. This could take until summer, honestly. So this could take till July to play out. This thing moves slower. When it does break out, though, it will be fast. Like, these are all daily candles, right? We've seen moves from 189 all the way up to 200 in a single day, or from 185 all the way up to 200 again in a single day. We've also seen moves down from 191, almost 192, down to 175 in a single day on this thing. It can move really fast. It could do this move in a single day and just wipe us out, take out that whole trade I just talked about. But this is something to watch. We are at a critical level on the Russell 2000. We came off of this Wyckoff distribution top over here, even including the very last thrust up that went a little higher to do a fake out breakout, and then came down. And as soon as price went under 210 and held down here, that was it. This distribution was over, and we started into a Wyckoff accumulation bottom down here, which, as you can see, looks very similar to this sort of scenario here. And what we're looking for now, so right now we're on this part, we're in phase D right now. We're looking for a bit of a move up, a test back of the top of the distribution or the accumulation zone, and then from there we move up, see a bit of a bear or a bull flag, and then from there we launch back up into phase E, which is going to be the distribution zone, which will probably happen again around $250, maybe even $300 on the IWM. So I'm watching this chart. I'm watching this chart closely. I do think this will play out probably maybe even in April. Could be April because April is usually a pretty good time for markets. But if it doesn't happen by April, May and June are usually not very good. I'd be looking towards July if it doesn't happen in April. So that's something on my chart as well. Then TMF. Now, oh man, this chart is brutal with all the SMAs. TMF. TMF is the 3x 20-year bonds. And we've talked about this before, how bonds move up for every 1% that the rate gets cut. Bonds move up about 10%. TMF is a 3x of that, so it's about 30% for every 1% cut on rates. Rates were, before the pandemic, they were near zero. Currently, they're almost at 6%. So there's a lot of runway to come down. If we just got a 3% reduction in interest rates, we're looking at a 100% return nearly on TMF. So that would take us up to about $102 from our current price of 52. So 104 or 106 about from our current value if we got a 3% cut in the next 2 years. Now, this is going to, like I just said, 2 years. This could be a 2-year play once it gets going. And I was in this for a long time. I held it for about a year. I made $50 waiting for the Fed to cut. And then I let that go while I continue to wait, because I do think now the best time, they say, now this is not my advice, but it is the advice in general. It is the general, I guess, wisdom of the bond market. It is generally best, and of course this is not financial advice, nor a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any assets. The general advice is that getting into bonds is best about 90 days before a Fed rate cut. So people are saying June. I don't necessarily think it's going to come into June. Might be more like a July thing, perhaps, which would put our 90 days. So which would put us in May, around May, which is a time that is generally weak for markets. Meaning that we could be about the same price we are now, or a little bit lower, maybe a little bit higher. Like the range lately has been between 65 and $50 on this thing, and we had a low down to 38 at one point in time. So I don't expect it to be significantly higher between now and May, but I think around May, June, when we get really close to those rate cuts, this thing is going to start moving, and moving fast. And now, if they don't cut, this will drop kind of dramatically, and it has been since December. Because remember, investors were expecting rate cuts early in 2024. Heck, we were expecting cuts in 2023. Didn't get them. I'm assuming around October they were expecting some sort of cut near the end of the year, so it started running up 90 days before the end of the year, into the end of the year. Didn't get a rate cut, and since December we've just been absolutely dropping, making lower lows and lower highs on TMF. waiting, just waiting for the Fed to say, now we're going to cut. And the moment they say, now we're going to cut, we will see a run up similar to like we saw back in from October to December of last year, where we doubled in price. And in our situation right now, that would be up to about $106 from the current value of TMF. Now, that is not saying run out and go get TMF right now. That is saying put this chart on your watch list. Watch what the Fed is doing. Keep an eye on the CME Fed Watch tool, which lets you know the percentage chance of whether or not the Fed is going to cut interest rates or not. Know that they probably won't do it until at least June, probably, because inflation data has been coming in too hot. Now, we can ignore the jobs data because the Fed has come outright and said that stronger jobs data will not deter them from cutting rates. So I'm not so concerned about that. I think it's more an inflation game now. If inflation continues to show a downward trend, they will cut sooner. If it does not, they're still going to cut like July or something just to keep things stable for the election. So that's something to keep in mind. TMF is an interesting play going into the end of the year, and it will be more like a 18-month to 24-month trade on TMF in order to get the full move out of it. Now, if you buy in, get a 20% pop in a month, that's pretty solid. I'd probably take that, honestly. So there you go. That's another one. Now, Palantir. I'm sure some of you have Palantir. Palantir is very exciting. So Palantir is currently trading at 24.67. They are coming on to what appears to be a head and shoulders here. The first shoulder being in February, then in early March we got the head, and right now we are forming the right shoulder. If that plays out, the bottom of this head and shoulder will take us all the way down to $20, perhaps where we fill this gap down to $17.50. So keep that in mind. There is a downward risk all the way down to $17.50 on Palantir right now, and tons of empty volume right below our current level. In fact, our last line of defense on this is 23.72. Anything below that, we might be going back to $20 very, very fast. So this head and shoulders is pretty ominous. Full disclosure, I do own Palantir. I have been buying for a little while now, and something very exciting has come out with Palantir. Now, I could not find this particular post. Now, I'm going to show you something from another YouTube channel. This is from Felix and Friends. I watch him occasionally. I do enjoy the things that he brings forward, but he's bringing forward this looked like, and I thought it would be on Twitter. Shyam Sankar, he's the CTO of Palantir, and his whole thing that he was saying, they're going to allow companies to reuse workflows they've already developed for other companies in order to quickly develop their IPs. Basically, they can get a working model for a company in less than an hour. In fact, they're saying it's going to be closer to like 10 minutes. And in fact, he says 8 minutes on his post here, whereas before they were taking months, weeks and months to get an AIP out to a potential customer. Now they're getting it out in minutes. And if you know anything about how Palantir has been working, they've been doing these boot camps with companies, getting them excited about Palantir, and then building out a workflow for them and then delivering it a few weeks later. Now they're going to be bringing in these companies, and they've been holding tons of these boot camps, like hundreds every year. And now they're going to be in a position where they can develop and provide that workflow to that company at the boot camp itself, meaning they can sign them up same day they get them in. That is super exciting, super bullish for Palantir right now. And of course, this is not financial advice, nor a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any asset whatsoever. And it is important to remember that we are forming a head and shoulders right here. If price goes below like $23, we are looking at a potential downside to $17.50 on Palantir. If you look back here, they do like head and shoulders on this stock. There is a head and shoulders back here from November 2023 where it started. And then at the end, mid-November, there was the head. In the back end of November, there was the right shoulder. And that went and took us down from a high of $22 all the way down to $17 with that little head and shoulders right there. We filled the gap. It was very, that was pretty abrupt, pretty fast. Especially during the Q4 of 2023, where things were still rallying into December. So keep that in mind. It does like to do head and shoulders, has done them in the past, and it is looking like it is forming one right now, which could potentially take us all the way down to $17.50 on this stock. This is something that is an exciting piece of news, a big development in this stock that could potentially drive it higher in the near future. Maybe in a year, maybe more, maybe hopefully when we're done with the um, Bitcoin mining trade, this thing will be primed for some purchasing, perhaps. At the moment, I think that it is a precarious spot right now. I would need to see it climb higher and get above, out of 27, but above like 24, like where it is. It needs to stay where it is currently and go above, 25, 36 to make me feel confident that we could potentially be driving higher towards that previous high from early in March. But if we get down to the 23.73 or last line of defense, $23, even if we get to that level and it does not start to show strength, I will be looking for an entry around $20 or even $17 on this stock. So that's all I've got for you today. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a profitable day.